Marcus, how would you evaluate Cutter's progress through fall camp and where he is now?
Yeah, good. I think we're finishing camp. We're 17 practices in. I think the transition from spring to summer to now has been good. It's been steady. I think we've pushed him really well. I think his demand of what he wants in the offense has come along each day. We've got obviously we're not arrived. We know that, but done a really good job. I think he's been intentful. I think he's been really deliberate off the field. He's really likened himself to getting in there and trying to find some dark hours work, which I think is necessary for this position to have the success we want. And so, done a really nice job.
What about his skill set excites you the most? Excited you when you were looking at bringing him here, and now that you've seen him?
Yeah, I mean, still a young player when we saw him. I think there was you had to look at that through a lens that said, okay, a guy who you don't know how it was been coached or what they were taught, and who got a chance to get his feet wet and get in some big time football games. But I think what we saw some arm talent, we saw some ability to lead. When we spoke to him on the phone, when we spoke to him in person, just the way he carried himself. He carried himself in the right way. I feel like a guy that guys could gravitate around, a guy who wanted to really learn. He was hungry. There was some toughness on tape, the ability to extend some plays, and now it's our job to kind of polish that up and continue to get those physical and critical skills really honed in. And so I think he's done a really good job, and we've been really deliberate on finding things that we think he can handle and do well.
How would you assess the way he's handled ball security?
Good. I think there's always going to be growth for that. Every level, every guy. I don't care how old you are at this position. You're going to have some opportunities where you're going to make some decisions that maybe you don't like and come back. I think the biggest thing you're working for in a process like this with a young quarterback and really at any level is when that does happen, how do they respond? And you got to do that. That cycle of the snap, that thinking, that mentality as a quarterback is something you can train in. That's as important as evaluating the mistake in and of itself. There's going to be some turnovers, especially when you want to be as aggressive as we are. Taking care of the football is going to be a huge piece. It's the number one thing that we got in any offense. And so there's going to be those mistakes. Got to take care of it. You got to evaluate why and when, and break some habits. But I think he's done a good job for what we've asked. There's going to be times where we want some things back. It's a couple today that, hey man, we got to figure out why and when, and then what to do next, and then how to respond to the next play. Just no compound errors. So as a young quarterback, we got to take our time with it and be really demanding of it, be critical. But we can't just throw everything out and lose our mind. That's just not the world we're in.
How do you feel about offensive tackle right now? I know you've made some switches recently. How do you feel about that position in general and the progression in fall camp?
Good. I mean, we've got some guys that are young and come in, and we're rolling through a few guys. It's a demanding position, as we know, probably the most critical position up front behind center at this level and any level really in this game. And so I thought those guys have stepped in and done a nice job. We're asking a lot. We're demanding. We're watching. We're really critical of what they're doing. And I think we've got some real value guys at that position that they're going to grow in and get better and better at each rep.
Question for you back off that. How do you feel just in camp, the overall growth of the offensive line as a camp?
Good. I mean, that's going to take the longest. It's the most, that chemistry and that gel with those five guys is something we talked about early on, and plugging 10 in the middle there and getting it starting from there. The nucleus really inside out is a really important factor with getting those guys on the same page. Each practice, especially the last few practices, I think we've really been demanding of those guys about their urgency and their intent, their physicality, and their fundamentals. And we're playing a good front. That's the other thing that we're fortunate enough here. We've got a really good front on defense that we get to go against every day. So the challenges are inherent, the demands inherent, and those guys have really answered the bell in regards to of what we're asking those guys to do.
Kenny said you guys should have a decision on the starter in about the next week or so. What are kind of those final discussions like between you and him?
It's every day. I mean, we go through, we're going to have another, 70, 80 plays today to go ahead and really be really critical with and figure out exactly where we need to be, who we need to put in the position to be successful, to who can be efficient, who can have the best command, how do we move the ball, who are they with, and evaluate those reps really critically, because we're down now into finishing camp and into game week. And so those conversations are ongoing. They're every day. They're in practice. They're on site. They're in the office, and I think that we're going to be happy in regards to our evaluation, in regards to saying, hey, we're all together on the decision and fired up about moving forward and putting a guy in position that can move the ball.
How do you feel like the tight ends have looked the last few practices, and how important is it having Kamari and some work with his back?
Yeah, having Kamari back at tight end in our offense is a big deal. Just because of the experience he's got amongst those other guys. That's a Swiss Army position. Those guys got to do a lot. They got to be in every meeting. They're in the run game meeting, they're in the protection meeting, they're in the pass game meeting. So to have a guy who's got that experience like Kamari, to have him back and get him back in the mix, I think elevates obviously our offense, but I think elevates the room too. A guy with experience can help through osmosis, really, just being around a guy who may know and answer questions when maybe a coach isn't around. And so getting him back in the mix is a big deal. It's a big part of our offense, and those guys know that. Now we factor some things around what we can do to their strengths.
How would you rate
Virtue's catch, probably the best catch at camp. Ironically, he's a guy, me and Kenny were, I forget when he was, either this summer or before camp, watching him when he got here. We saw him evaluate, when we got here early, was a freaky athlete, big kid, but he was out catching balls one-handed on the jugs about 10 feet away at full speed. And I said in the headset right there, there's the jugs machine right now, because we happened to watch him catching one-handed jugs. We're like, you got to kid me. He's got outfielder mitt, and that was awesome to see. Really good to see for a young guy, and then the juice from the collective is probably the funnest part. It just goes to show you how close our team is and how excited they are for a freshman who didn't go through and so much got here late.
How much did you see Kamari's prior familiarity with Cutter show up on the field?
I don't know if there's hey, there's that connection there. It is. I don't know if we right off the bat. I see a guy who's been working with a guy off season and throughout spring of trying to connect with his players. I think the communication that Cutter's allowed himself to have and put himself out there with the group is starting to show up, whether it's timing, whether it's how to talk to guys, where you want them. His familiarity with Kamari, I think, just opens an avenue to an easier conversation because they know each other,
How do you describe Cardi's Mac development since getting to camp?
One more time.
How do you describe Cardi's Mac development since getting to camp?
Cardi, as a true freshman, for a running back, that's a big weight to carry. He has done an awesome job. He's got the power, the burst, the confidence, the balance is another. His power and balance are one thing that we saw early, as we evaluated him and we're so high on him. His ability to contact and stay on his feet is huge. And so when you've got a true freshman getting good reps, you've got a guy in your hands that you can really lean into. We take care of him. He's going to be special.
When you said that depth is a huge part of the wide receiver room, is there anything in particular about this group that sticks out compared to some of the other ones from the last couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, the word depth. I mean, you got multiple guys who can do it. It's going to be hard to match up when you got 2 or 3 guys who really can win a one-on-one battle. And so you're seeing that take shape as we get further into camp, where guys are making themselves available at certain times, whether it's a primary read or a secondary read or a yes-no on the backside. You've got multiple places to go with the ball in your offense, and as a quarterback, obviously that makes it pretty friendly.
When you look back at Saturday's scrimmage, how do you feel like Jake Fetty looked, and how much have you seen him grow this fall?
Jake's done a good job. I mean, another true freshman we're talking about, right? I think the thing you want to see from Jake right now is the ability for him to just go out there and play free and play flat, play fast. Want to give him enough exposure to the offense and the game to where you're not slowing him down and letting him still play. Arm talent showed up, the ability to escape. He's got a certain poise and aura about him when he's in there. All the fundamental pieces will still come to fruition as we continue to go pocket and seeing the field a little bit more, staying with progressions. But a guy who we've all seen now who's got some real talent.